Okay, we're live on WinFM 90.9. So who's going to be our first caller today? And of course today the second day where you're allowed to do some shopping for essential items. 2 zones in St. Kitts, 2 zones as well on Nevis. The West Zone shops today in Bastyr. But of course you're allowed to shop in your own neck of the woods, in your own areas. If you're east and the shops in the eastern area, you're still allowed to shop. If you're in the western area, well then you're allowed into Bastyr today to do some of your shopping. As we all prepare for the Easter weekend, of course today, Holy Thursday, and tomorrow Good Friday. The Easter weekend beckons. Give us a call this morning. Let us know what your experience has been so far, trying to get your essentials, what's happening in your neighborhood, what are you observing, any analysis you want to offer us, any recommendations. We're standing by for your calls. I want to say a very good morning as well to our listeners in the tri-state area of the USA. We just can't believe the news we're getting out of New York. So many people who are now hospitalized, receiving intensive care. So many have died. And officials are saying that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And of course, in other parts of the world, of course, the struggle continues in terms of the response to COVID-19. The global figures are just getting bigger and bigger every day. Several measures in place on St. Kitts and Nevis, social distancing, the police, defense force out asking very courteously for people to just maintain that social distance of 6 feet between customers. And we want to say a very good morning to the security forces this morning. And of course the hard-working people in the supermarkets and the food outlets who have to work so hard to stock the shelves and then of course to deal with the customers. And of course to the customers as well. Thanks to your patience, standing up in the sunshine, sometimes for hour after hour, but all in a good cause. All right, the telephone lines are pretty quiet at the moment. Perhaps people are out and about or just wanting to hear what's happening. The Prime Minister of St. Kitts, his name is Dr. Timothy Harris, made an address yesterday, the end of the National Emergency Operations Center briefing. There's a daily briefing held just around 5 o'clock in the afternoon where officials report on the day's proceedings and give information that is pertinent to people dealing with COVID-19, offering advice and, of course, statistics information. And at the end of the briefing yesterday, the Prime Minister gave a presentation. We'll play that presentation for you now, seeing the phones are pretty quiet.
Mr. Williams, and thank you for the enlightenment that you gave earlier regarding the availability of factual and reliable information with respect to the COVID. When I first spoke at a briefing session, I said that this really was an interesting time and it continues to be so. I would want to remind persons that there has been nothing like this in living memory. We are all on uncharted waters. And that is why when the pandemic unfolded with a swiftness and a vengeance, people everywhere were caught by surprise. And it brought into question the concept of intelligence. How could, for example, the most powerful country in the world not foreseen, not understand what was unfolding in the most populous of countries, mainland China? How could they not know? And I want to put that into perspective. No country anywhere has been prepared for COVID-19. Not China, not Italy, not the United States of America, nowhere in Europe has anyone been prepared for this. We are fortunate that for such a time like this in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a cadre of leadership that took notice early and was able to put a plan in place which we are now implementing in a more successful way. Is it a perfect plan? No, because none has ever been created perfectly in the world. When the story book is written about the pandemic, how it battered and bruised mankind and threatened our way of life, some outstanding persons and countries are going to emerge. And I am very certain that this, the smallest independent country, will emerge as a success story. Already, some have taken note of the fact that we, the smallest country, was able to keep the pandemic at bay for as long as was reasonably possible. We were the last among the independent states for which the pandemic visited. That has been a success then for our method of advanced planning. And I want to commend the Chief Medical Officer and the medical fraternity, including the Medical Chief of Staff, who have been among the cadre of excellent health professionals that are now in service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want you to give a hand of commendation as we extend happy birthday to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws. And she has in turn, she didn't bring to us any cake or wine. Perhaps those are against the laws. Indeed, she could only acquire them wholesale, and there are no wine cups or glasses. But what she has given to us today is a shining example of how patriotism must move each of us. What she has given to St. Kitts and Nevis is a very special gift of excellence in service and a perseverance in fulfillment of an urgent task. And for that, my cabinet and I, and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, would long remember her of one of the best CMOs. And indeed, you have heard before me by those more eminently qualified than I am, that she is the best CMO we have had in a long while. So I commend her. But equally sitting here, in my view, is one of the best medical chiefs of staff that we have witnessed. Because in the context of the overriding burden of management of a health system with limited resource that has been inherited, our Chief of Staff, Dr. Cameron Wilkerson, have shown a great enthusiasm and a great commitment to the urgency of now. And he knows that his redemption song, like Socrates, must be this virus past St. Kitts and Nevis, because we work so hard as an all of society response to this pandemic. His inspiration of the health workers in the front line I want to commend, because I hear both nurses and doctors say how impressed and how motivated they have been, Dr. Wilkinson, by your own love for the job, as they express it. And I want you to continue to encourage them and to nurture them to excellence. Because ultimately, I am reminded of something that Professor Rex Nettleford many times seemed anxious about. Who are we as Caribbean people? Where do we stand in the world stage? Why do we always have that sense of self-doubt about ourselves, about our institutions, and their comparative advantage and competitiveness to the rest of the world? And he often would say in conversations, as I attended forums of the University of the West Indies in Mona, in my capacity as Minister of Education, all we have is us. All we have is us. What then do you do when you recognize that in the context of the pandemic, all we have is us? The people who love St. Kitts and Nevis, and we are not conflicted by loyalty to any other person or country. All we have is us. All we have is us. So we can afford to be patient. We can afford, as it were, to inspire others to do the right thing every day. We can't wait for the United States of America to send us no resources. They are challenged. We can't wait for any other country. Our first response must be us. And so we have to find the shining stars, like Dr. Hazel Laws and Dr. Cameron Wilkerson, that every day remind our nurses, our doctors, our security officers, that all we have are you to get the job done. And this is your testing time, your time of challenge. But out of this test must come your redemption song. And people in St. Kitts and Nevis, as people everywhere, would have to appreciate that in the task of nation building, sacrifices have to be made. And it sometimes baffles me that some people who are to know better pretend that they don't understand. We are in a real war for survival. And that is why, we need the patience, because all we have is us. If we begin to fight, then we are limiting the reservoir of resources that we have. All we have is us. When in abnormal times, people want things that could only happen in a normal context to happen, we are going to have a problem. And it brings into focus the lesson, I think it was in the book of Acts. No pastor's here to help me. Chapter 8 and verse 31. The question was put, do you understand what you read? And the answer was given by another question. How can I unless somebody guide me? How can I? It was the Ethiopian, Yes. How can I unless somebody guide me? Somebody must teach me. And today I had every reason to be proud as I walked to Bastia to get a first-hand knowledge of how our people were responding to the zoning. Somebody called me to say how the zoning gonna work. I said, by the end of the day, we're gonna know how we're gonna work. But there is no template to guide us. There have been no pandemic of this kind anywhere in the world to guide us. But our sons and daughters, with a commitment to their country, they have come up with this plan. And they are all that we have. And we have trusted their judgment. So when I reach to Value Mart and I see people standing, how long have you been there? Some for hours. But there really was no anger. There was a sense that our people at long last had come to understand that these are serious times. These are not times you can plan to go shopping, run there and run back out. Because we now have restrictions in the numbers, and you have to go there with an attitude that you are going to stick to it. That to me was important. I walked the long line and somebody, Lord, the line long, eh? I said, it's not so long because it got 6 feet apart between individuals. So it looked longer than normal because we are in a new role, new world order in which social distancing has now become vogue. And that is one of the things that we have to adjust ourselves to. We went to Rams. It was the same display. I asked which line you're in. Line for the elderly, line for the special or essential services, and suddenly everybody wants to be essential service, whether they are police, nurse, or what's not. So in times like these, either the very best will come from a people or the very worst. Our expectation is that the very best will come from most of the people in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to remind our people that the regulations as they are enacted under the Emergency Powers Act starts with the presumption that everyone is staying at home. Being away from home is abnormal. That is what it is. So to be away from home, the critical thing, you are in shelter. And the safest shelter is your home, your neighborhood, your community. For you to go beyond that, there must be an overriding and compelling reason. And I want people to understand that. These times where people come to shop just because it is what we used to do, and we have to come to town to shop, we are saying for this period that we are under threat, buy in your local communities what you can get there. It will save you the 3, 4, 5 hours that you have to spend at Rams, at Value Mart, and wherever else. And it also minimizes your exposure to the difficulties and the transmission of the virus. So it is for your own good, and I want our people to see it that way. We can't get carried away with the little nitpicking that some people want to always find fault with. We want our people to say, we will give it a try. We will soldier on because we recognize these are uncharted waters. And if there is a biblical referent or reference, it was the story when you have to help me as a good Catholic, when it was the commandment was given, just step out on the waters. Take a step. Let's write who it was. Walking on the water. Peter. But you must take a step. But it looked risky. But take the step and acceptance of faith in what we are doing in these uncharted waters. Never before seen. That is what is required of us. To have faith in what is being put by our CMO, supported by the best personalities we have in our health sector. And that is what I want to commend. I want to end dead on a note of commendation. Because there are times when we grapple with West Nettlesford's notion that all we have is us. We wonder, can we rely on us? Who among us can rely upon to help us in the task of nation building? And we also have to put that in play with the Greek mythology of the children of Sisyphus. Oh, how it was that when they had the opportunity to go to the top of the mountain, self-doubt, always the rock will come tumbling down, and the task of getting up become ever so challenging. All we have is us. Today, when we drove through the terminal, the ferry terminal, I heard the policewoman, Donnelly Caesar, speaking, Donnelly Shiverton, on the sound system, saying, go home. Go to your shelter. You have finished your business in town. Go home, people. It is not for you after you would have finished your transactions in the supermarket, at the pharmacies, to stay around Bastille and to have a life. I want to big up Donnelly Shiverton for being a shining star. Those are the citizens on which the task of nation building will depend. Because what is the message? Stay in your shelter. Stay at home. And you have an opportunity during the partial curfew to move about with restrictions on your freedom. Avoid the excessiveness of abusing it, liming around town as if it is normal time. And when the police officer saw that, she was brave enough to say, go home. And I want to encourage our citizens and residents to stay at home. I heard a radio DJ on Freedom Radio talking about the nitpicking of people around the curfew. Like some of the questions we are asking. We want to know that it will be perfect. We want to know, well, why the police turn back somebody. All these, in my view, are little inconvenience against the Herculean challenge which we face. How do we protect our people so that we keep at a certain level in the transmission and we do not create a local pandemic, as it were, right here? So if the police have to turn you back, go back when they say go back. Because really and truly, the regulations under a state of emergency, you really should be home. But reasonableness dictates that you get a little space and time to do certain things, and we have attempted to give you. I want to commend the flexibility of the supermarket operators, who today determined, after consultation with the police, that they were going to extend the hours from 3 o'clock a bit to allow those who were in the lines to be able to access their service. I want to commend them, and I want to thank the police for seeing that. And my expectation is that the police, having rolled out the program today, seeing how it has worked, tomorrow they will be better at doing what they must do to preserve the peace in the country. So I want to commend Commissioner Brandy, who is here, and Superintendent Henry. Let's give them a round of applause. Yes, we should, for their work. We started quickly this morning, and they brought it to a successful end. At about 2 or 3 o'clock, when I contacted the ACP for Operations, Mr. Adams, one of our hardest working police officers, how were things going? He said it was going very well. When I told him one of the requests I had had from an individual, he said, well, that can be accommodated. The police has been very reasonable and flexible in the circumstances, and I want to commend them. I want to thank the banks, because some of them began the physical distancing and the hand hygiene along in advance. I want to thank the church leadership, particularly of the Catholic Church, the Moravian, the Methodists, and all those churches who very early understood the urgency of the time and began to do the necessary adjustment. So on that note of thankfulness, I want to say that I feel very confident that St. Kitts and Nevis can certainly lead the rest of the world in the sensible way in which we manage this particular pandemic. And I am confident that we will rise from this battle victorious with a new redemption song in our heart, with a greater appreciation that all we have really is us. And we relied upon our people, their patriotism, their knowledge, their love for country to guide our action plan and to bring us this resounding victory. So, fellow citizens and residents, cooperate with the police tomorrow. Don't bother to try to outsmart the system, because by doing so, you're risking your own lives. If you know you're already shopped, don't move to say you're no longer in East, you're in Central, because if you are found out, the penalty will be great. And I've advised the Attorney General, where we are having people attempting to outsmart the system, we are going to put some harsher penalties whenever we get into the Parliament. Because at this time of crisis, we want more virtuous people to come forward to assist us, to wage the war and to win the war against COVID-19. So thank you one and all, and thank you for your cooperation. We are a good people, and we know how to win this war, but we have to win it together, each one encouraging each other. May God bless the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and may God bless the St. Kitts and Nevis I love with all my heart. Thank you, and God bless you.
The Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, addressing the nation, if you like, at the end of the NEOC briefing, National Emergency Operations Center press briefing last evening. And of course, today, just around 5 o'clock, we can expect another briefing from the NEOC when perhaps there will be some analysis of proceedings of today. Yesterday, the shopping hour extended to 5 p.m. At 3 o'clock, the scheduled time for stores to close. The lines were still very, very long indeed, so an extension was granted until 5 p.m. You're tuned to Min FM, it's 90.9, it's Voices, Compliments, Rams. Yes, indeed. You're tuned to Min FM. It's 90.9 Voices, Compliments, Rams. We go to the phone lines to get our first caller on the air this morning. Good morning, caller. You're live and on the air.
Hello, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good to hear your voice. Mr. Bacchus, 2 days ago, on Tuesday this week, Senator Wendy Phipps mentioned during the daily press briefing that Dr. Terence Drew had donated several masks to the health department. She said they could not really be utilized because the descriptions were written in Mandarin. Now, my question to you is, in a population of 54,000 people, are there no individuals who could translate from Mandarin to English so that the senator could be much better and professionally informed?
And that's a rhetorical question, right?
That's my question, sure.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
And can you relay that question to her this afternoon?
Yes, sir. Well, what the senator said, the instructions were in Mandarin, as well as the origin of the test kits. The Chinese test kits were not in use in the Caribbean, were not recommended. There were some countries that had difficulties with the test kits before. And also the whole issue of erring on the side of caution informed the decision of the government. So it was a question of the Chinese origin. The rapid testing was not a gold standard, and the third was that it was in Mandarin. That's what our news item said, and we did interview Dr. Drew yesterday, and he explained that from his perspective, there were ways to verify those kits and put them in use. Dr. Patrick Martin did say once they had high sensitivity, and he explained what that meant in terms of negative results, then they could still be put in play. But the ministry is saying essentially that the decision was made to err on the side of caution. And Dr. Drew has said he will continue to offer contributions, and he believes that specialists can verify these things. So that's where we are in terms of what we know so far about that particular issue. You're tuned to Win FM, it's 90.9, and of course we're taking your calls, 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Bacchus. How are you today?
Miss Henry, I am excellent today. How are you?
And how is the water working?
Well, I couldn't use it at all, man. I had so much to say, you know.
Oh, Lord. You got to watch it still, though, you know. You understand? Because you know what it is. People like to twist your words.
Well, you can't have that.
You have to have contortion.
Well, it's better to speak and be misinterpreted than to say nothing at all.
Sometimes the audience, you know, we have some audiences who choose, who tend to believe the more contorted truth.
Yeah, well, that's the right.
I am so glad Mr. Warner came in. It was not the mask. He said mask. The issue was test kit. This morning I listened to a conference by Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, on another local radio station. And that question was asked, if they're using the quick tests, and they said they have no intention of using them. And they went back to the same thing that was said by the doctor from CAFA. So that might help to clear up the issue, because CAFA said they're not accepting them. And they gave the reason. In that they said, while you may find the antibodies, it has to do with the time when the test was taken. Is it before they were infected and after they were infected? Mr. Backup, I wish you could play that thing. What the lady said, because I think this issue keeps coming up. And I don't know why our people are so naive. Yesterday, Honorable Congress Maynard revealed what I have been saying all the time, that the whole issue is political. He said, you know, they were giving out food packages, right? There are people who need them, and thanks for that. But he said they took the money from the campaign fund, because, you know, election is around the corner, to purchase these things to give out. Well, anything a politician does is politics. Don't deceive yourself. Even if they say, oh, no, whether it is unity or labor, all of this generosity is politics. We went through a recession and not one package came out here, you know. 4 straight years of negative growth in the economy. Hardship can't done. Not one package, but election is coming. And so they assumed pretended generosity. Now let me start with sending birthday greetings to Miss Hazel Laws. Interestingly, this morning, Jamaica's CMO is a female and also St. Lucia. I learned that from listening to the different country thing. And I said, well, I have to big up the women. I have to big up the women because Hazel Laws is the first female we have had. And it seemed to be normal in other countries. And there have been attempts to denigrate her contribution. You know, and to me it sounds bad, eh? And to me it means a lot because happy belated birthday, Hazel Laws. I taught her in Bastia High School now. For those who don't know, she went to Bastia High School. And Mr. Bacchus, she was the top student from 1A1 to 6A1. She just wake up, you know. And, you know, Glenn Jefferson, Tennessee?
Yes.
He was the top male student. And I met them in 4G1. I was the form teacher and also the mathematics teacher. And we divided the class into two, because, you know, you want to give the sharpest children the best chance. So we divided the class into two. And she was in my group, and Glenn was in Mr. Wilkes' group. And as teachers, you know, everybody wants their student to do the best. And Mr. Wilkes said, you see, Hazel, wait till she get a boyfriend. He said, when she get a boyfriend, Glenn is going to pass her. And Hazel didn't disappoint me. Right? She didn't get a boyfriend, and she kept concentrating on her work. So I must commend her. I must commend her. She stuck to the gun. I mean, she used to irritate. Always very quiet. You know, she had with the long skirt. Her skirt was the longest in her class. And I would, when I teach, wherever I stop, I would say, do the rest of homework. Every other one, she would go home and do all, you know, and come back and say, Mrs. Henry, because you know, she had a soft voice. Mrs. Henry, I would like you to, I tell her, yes, I'll mark them for her. And, you know, those who only wanted to do the amount, they push up their face. So, happy birthday again, Hazel. I am proud of you. And I want us to be proud. We are asking to have women in leadership position. And she stepped up. I mean, I missed her. She was in Jamaica, she said, for 31 years. And she gave up that to come back. And, you know, I appreciate her. I appreciate her. Not only because I knew her as a child, but because, to me, she has been doing a fairly good job answering the questions fairly well. Mr. Bacchus, do you think so?
Of course. She's done a great job.
Yes, I think so, too. So when I hear people, you know, denigrating and commending and commenting, as the PM says, this is all we have, you know. We seem not to like our people, you know, and especially a female. We're quick to pull down a female. We have had some very, very efficient, proficient, productive, any kind of word you use, intelligent women in this federation, both in St. Kitts and Nevis. The lady over there in charge the person over there in charge is a female. We've got to make room. We've got to learn to appreciate our people. And that should encourage all the other females in the federation to do your best. I listened to a program you had on your show, I think it was Tuesday night, the tech show.
Yes, with the young people.
Yeah, and this young lady came on and was saying that she has this program where you could do learning, IITA, something like that. I mean, they are to be commended. I commend all the males also because, you see, the expectation is that the male will succeed. And the women, we say maybe. But we got to done with the foolishness. We have to done with it. I am calling upon the young women to do mathematics. Mr. Bacchus, I am very disappointed, I was the statistician, the economic statistician, for 18 years. And we just couldn't, up to today, we don't have a female statistician. They look all kind of ways they're going to do demography, to monitor or they run into the economic thing to hide out. But we want them in the statistics department. Often when I traveled, there were one or two. I was one, and there was one from St. Lucia. And then Hazel Corbin from Antigua. She was the statistician sent by the ECCB. You couldn't find many females. So I'm encouraging all of you young women out there, pick up the stems. The country needs you. And every female who step up, as a politician, the one in Nevis who just went on, Dr. Simmons, I think her name is, I appreciate her. I don't care what side she's on. She should be an inspiration to the other females. And so, once again, belated happy birthday to Dr. Hazel Laws, and I'll be back.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Henry. You're listening to Voices on WinFM 98.9. Our numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. It is Thursday, and of course, some essential shopping taking place. And of course, if you want to share your experiences while you're out shopping or what it's like to be at home for so long, we're willing to hear from you, or whatever else you may want to raise as an issue on the program. Calling you live and on the air. Good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody out there in Radioland. And good morning, Mr. Bacchus. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, Mr. Pemberton, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Hi, how are you enjoying the new norm?
No, it's not norm at all.
Excellent. Well, guess what? I told you before that to succeed in the new norm, adaptability will have to become the norm. So you think about that. If you're having your reservations about your survivors, I don't have any about mine. Same God, yesterday, today, and forever. Mr. Bacchus, I want to begin by wishing our extraordinarily ravishing and super efficient CMO, Dr. Hazel Lloyd. Happy birthday. I love you. Somebody said that there would not be left two friends in the world if our thoughts were audible and visible. Because if you could really hear and see what people think, you would be amazed. If this is true, Dr. Laws, then we would be the notable exception, because I genuinely adore you. Happy birthday to you. We now go come no Italy. Thanks for the depth of your devotion. When I heard that, I trembled that the right people at the helm, Team Unity, chose right. I'm going to say, may you get every good thing you ever desired, your noble heart ever desired, and may it descend upon you in double portion. To Mr. Samuel Abdian, we love you. We appreciate what you're doing out there and your superb team. We are keeping the curve flat. Nobody said yet. George Bernard Shaw, the Anglo-Irish playwright, rose to some prominence that few men on the earth would experience, and at the end of his days, in his twilight years, having interviewed and hobnobbed with the best of the best, la creme de la creme, somebody posed to him the question: of all the persons you have interviewed, which one would you most like to interview again? And his answer has special application to us. He said, as a man that I could have been, so often we have bought our greatness. And I'm thoroughly convinced, Mr. Bacchus, this morning that the single greatest impediment to us and to our continuing evolution into what God intends for us to eventually become is politics. Dr. Drew cannot be allowed to be seen as a value to our nation. Mind you, what preposterous absurdity. Dr. Drew, you're valuable to me, infamous, rejected by the Honorable Eugene Hamilton from the voting list in the place you advertise unlike anybody else, Green Valley. Rejected by the most Honorable Eugene Hamilton, infamous. Valuable to me. And in saying that, I can say without fear of contradiction that I'm speaking for all of Green Valley. And by saying sometimes I think, looking at my party, we have become, in many ways, even though our job is laudable, we have become victims of our success. And the same man who gave me $5,000 worth of clothes, and I came back here, having served time in maximum security prison, can turn to his best friend, Eugene Hamilton, and tell him, I made you an hour would break you. You're out of place. I'll bend you over to you and let you have it in the rear. The Honorable Eugene Hamilton probably quivered. Even the man he keeps company with, a man is known by the company he keeps. I want you to tell the Prime Minister for me. Regarding my money. Don't be distracted from the mission at hand, but he who is too big to serve the individual is too small to serve the masses also. Good afternoon, folks.
Well, you did lose me a bit there, Mr. Pemberton, I must tell you. I didn't get some of what you were saying there moments ago, but I know you put a lot of energy into it, but you lost me, I must admit. So for the first time since I've been listening to you, I couldn't follow what you were saying for the latter part of your presentation. So perhaps if you would like to call back a bit later on and be a little more clear about what you're talking about, it may help me to understand exactly what the point you're making, probably help our listeners as well. All right, you're listening to Voices on Win FM 90.9, and our telephone numbers are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. We go back to the phone lines. Caller, you live and on the air, and a very good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bacchus. But
yes, good morning.
You the follow. I will last long time. I'm always lost. But anyway, Mr. Bacchus, yesterday you kept me on the line from Munster Park. I was on the line up until Voices time.
Oh, my. I'm so sorry.
Listening to, please be patient. Mr. Bacchus, you owe me because I was very patient and you never answered the line.
I'm sorry, my dear. I do apologize.
Yesterday you called Dr. Laws, you laugh, you carry on, and you never pick up the phone. And I deliberately not hang up because let me see how long Mr. Bacchus going to keep me here on this
This
line.
is terrible.
And matter of fact, it was me and somebody else on, but I think the person that was holding on was from Sinkit and the money ran out.
Oh, boy. Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. This is really terrible. I apologize. I'm guilty.
In any case, I was really calling to wish my brother in Christ, Monstrat, my condolences to him and his family, and pray God's strength for him and his family in these sad times. And good morning to St. Kitts, and good morning to my village, Connery. Culture, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Stay safe.
But you're saying...
Bye, Mr. Bacchus.
No, just before you go now, you've been giving all these wishes to everybody. Let me ask about you. How are you doing? How are you coping with this COVID-19 thing? Where you are right now?
I am coping just fine. I will not complain. It makes no sense to complain. My husband works in New York. When he come home, well, some of his job sites are shut down because of the COVID-19, but I am giving God thanks. I'm alive. I won't complain. It don't make any sense. Complaining does not change the situation. They say when life give you lemon, make lemonade. So I'm going to make my lemonade and give God thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that.
You have a good day.
You too, my dear. Thank you so much for calling. Much appreciated. All right, so, condolences to Culture, not Culture, to Mr. Montserrat. And, of course, to some of our listeners who are going through a pretty rough time. Some of their relatives are hospitalized. Some are getting some news that they're kind of worried about today as well. And, of course, we just want to wish you well. These are indeed tough times. Let's go back to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Call you on the air, and good morning to you.
Mr. Bacchus, good morning.
Mr. Montserrat, boy, you were right on the money. You're just right on the money, man. Good morning to you.
Yeah, but morning. But me may try long before, though.
Oh, boy, more blows again. Yes.
Mr. Bacchus, morning to all the listeners. My sister, thank you. Connecticut representing Canary. Mr. Bacchus, do you get in touch with Las Colungi?
No, I didn't get a chance. Remember, we have another lockdown thing going on here, and so. But it'll have to be after this lockdown thing is over.
After this.
Yes.
After this, the celebration.
Yes.
Mr. Bacchus, I only hope after this mission representation this morning, I wouldn't hear anything negative now. My very good friend Marcella. All right? Mr. Hey, keep that train going. So, nothing negative for Marcella anymore. Mr. Bacchus, the other day, we come in at the house when, and if we don't check the time, how much time do Mr. Bacchus before lunch?
Right now, you got another 3.5 minutes to go.
Okay, no problem. We're done before that. The other morning, me here when we come to the house, up here, I can walk around with them. We have to be stationary. Me here, Miss Henry now, make Greg wants to lecture in, but then me hear Miss Henry say like, as time goes on, as culture change, well, me believe she make one mistake and say, well, the Bible not change, it's just the culture change. And Greg come on, not disagreement, and said the very same thing. Greg even make one reference like with before like homosexuals also used to be instant death. Now the sin remain, but you don't get that instant death anymore. So the very same point that Mr. make, the very same point that Greg make, but there's still a disagreement. Then Mr. Bacchus, you say that, me up to the mark for, in case you get them, me up to the mark for the refereeing. So I say, well, let me make the case first, and then maybe ask Mr. Bacchus afterwards. You might slide down to the just when you get Mr. and Greg, Mr. Bacchus. That's not provoking, right?
I tell you, man.
You clip 3 days before that we can quarantine. I just come and just rest with him and just stop. You know, I have to get back out of it very quick. I mean, I live, you know, plenty people not so love me. You understand me?
Yeah, I understand.
Right, okay. Mr. Bacchus, one more thing on the gun. Yesterday, we listened very carefully to Dr. Joe. Then you bring on Dr. Patrick Martin afterwards. Then we listened last night to thing. But we still not even need to hear. We still not even need to hear them kind of comments there. It's fine that we may look for you ask Dr. Joe a couple more questions different to how you asked me. But you never did. Anyway, these are the points that me want to make. Now, you know one system. Our body, our Caribbean body, and these are the system that they say that they must deal with. I mean, me think if Dr. Joe want to make one contribution, he should have asked first. You think he do that first? Ask first, then get one response, then for just make one contribution just like that day. I know the contribution not fit in that they cause disturbance. And one trick in there. But me not really too want to get into that deep. But I mean, I have to very be careful. The devil tricksy. And any little thing, it look good, yes. But it design, and maybe Dr. Jonah don't even recognize what he and I do. But you see, human being are the instrument, either God or the devil. And you have to very be careful of all in the cause confusion. Mr. Bacchus, me back after lunch if we get this.
All right, good, man. All right, thank you so much for your contribution. Thanks to our callers as well. We spent our time today listening to what you have had to say, and of course we'll continue this afternoon. I'm going to raise the issue this afternoon when we come back a little bit about this complaints we're getting about domestic abuse. And we're getting more reports now in some parts of the world, including the Caribbean. In recent times, after the edict was issued from place to place that, look, you have to stay at home for your own safety and the safety of those people you care about as well. So when we come back, hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that as well, apart from the other things that you may want to contribute on the program. So stay tuned now. We'll bring you the headline news. We'll be back in about half an hour or so to continue in Voices.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Was Dr. Terence Drew being altruistic or simply playing politics when he provided the Ministry of Health with test kits to help fight the coronavirus? Whatever the true motive, the test kits did not meet with the approval of Junior Health Minister Wendy Phipps. We'll hear Dr. Drew's response to how his gift was received. But let's first recap what Minister Phipps had to say about the donation made by Drew, an election candidate and the chairman of the opposition St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party.
Yes, the kits were received in Mandarin. There was no way to judge the efficacy of the tests. So in the meantime, we cannot use the tests. In the release that would have been issued on the 4th of April, we went further by indicating that we would have not proceeded with them in light of the growing media attention that would have been circulating in the international press concerning test kits from China that were faulty. Some of the releases would have focused on the rejection of test kits that were bought by the government of Spain, test kits that would have been bought by the government of Czechoslovakia, and several other countries. Further research would have also shown that even though some of these test kits claim that they are certified by this laboratory or that laboratory, in fact, when in-depth research would have been done, there was no such case. Because just because you put it on your box that your test is verified here or there, you, in this kind of economy that we have, in this global climate we have to be absolutely certain. And it is for that reason why I would have taken the time in today's presentation to reassure the public that even in terms of CARFA, we are not using rapid test kits, and we are also not using test kits out of China, out of an abundance of caution.
Terence Drew, a medical doctor, speaking on WinFM's Voices program Wednesday, said he was interested in making a contribution to the fight against the virus, and that was the reason he made the test kits contribution.
I would say that it is prudent in any country that all people would come together and work together in order to deal with this scourge of any pandemic. It means that everybody should really be brought to the table so that a can act together to make sure that the safety of our country and our people is foremost and important. I want to let that clear. I am putting myself out there saying I'm willing to work with anybody, the Ministry of Health, anybody in my country whose interest it is to protect the health of our people. This is my country, and my country comes first.
Dr. Drew has defended the donation he made. He says he submitted some tests to the CMO's office and was asked for verification in relation to the accuracy of these tests.
And it can easily be verified that those people who were diagnosed with the PCR, we can use their drop of blood and see if we can verify the test kit. So that is one way in which you can verify it.
Dr. Drew was clearly disappointed with the position taken by the government on this matter.
And we have to stay on the cutting edge of the technology, which means when there are new treatments, we need to do our own verification. When there are new testing, we need to do our own verification. And that would help us to stay on the cutting edge and make sure that we're always getting the best for our people. And that is where I can offer some help.
Some of the members of the country's workforce who qualify for payments from the Social Security COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund can expect to begin receiving payments from next week. Labour Minister Van Samri, who is responsible for Social Security, has indicated that payments will be made to applications already processed from next week. According to the minister, employees at the St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board and the Department of Labour have been working diligently to process claims in an expeditious manner. A statement from the Social Security Board explains that it proposes to pay each insured person who is laid off or unemployed,
along with the Port Authority, and work in some of these containers. Some items would have been released immediately because they would have had a high priority, and again, those would have been medical supplies and medicaments. So I just want to assure you that while we are in lines at the supermarket, we have ample supply of foodstuffs within the Federation this week alone, never mind what is warehoused. So do not panic, take your time, exercise the social distances in regards to those lines, and you'll be fine.
Comptroller of Customs De Silva was speaking at the COVID-19 daily briefing of the National Emergency Operations Center Wednesday. A hemispheric appeal from the director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Carissa Etienne. The leading PAHO official is urging countries to take measures that protect healthcare workers to ensure that they have access to the protective equipment and supplies they need to care for patients affected by the coronavirus. Her warning came as cases of the virus doubled in a week in the region of the Americas. Dr. Etienne expressed concern that shortages of the most basic protective equipment leave doctors, nurses, and other frontline workers dangerously vulnerable as they care for COVID-19 patients. Through April 6, 384,435 confirmed cases of COVID-19 have been reported in the Americas, and 11,270 people have lost their lives. The PAHO director noted that in just 7 days, the Americas region, that includes the Caribbean, witnessed cases and deaths more than double. With the pandemic accelerating rapidly, Dr. Etienne urged governments to prepare and respond at the same speed. She urged countries to follow PAHO guidelines and recommendations, including social distancing measures, to lessen the burden on health systems. The PAHO director said, quote, "A pandemic like COVID-19 would overwhelm any health system, but its impact on those without sufficient health workers will be devastating," end quote. She worries that limited supplies of gloves, medical masks, respirators, goggles, and gowns can lead to a wave of preventable infections among health workers. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is advocating for support for the World Health Organization as it leads the fight against COVID-19. The UN boss describes the pandemic as one of the most dangerous challenges this world has faced in our time. Guterres says it is above all a human crisis with severe health and socioeconomic consequences. The UN chief notes that the WHO, with thousands of its staff, is on the front lines supporting member states and their societies, especially the most vulnerable among them, with guidance, training, equipment, and concrete life-saving services as they fight the virus. At a time when the U.S. president is criticizing the WHO and blaming it for the current U.S. COVID-19 situation, the UN Secretary General insists that support for the World Health Organization is, quote, absolutely critical to the world's efforts to win the war against COVID-19, end quote. Antonio Guterres contends that now is the time for unity, for the international community to work together in solidarity to stop this virus and its shattering consequences. The nation heard from Chief Medical Officer Hazel Laws on Wednesday about the health status of the people of the Federation in relation to the coronavirus. Dr. Laws indicated that stringent efforts are continuing on the part of the country's health workers to reduce the impact of the virus in St. Kitts and Nevis.
As of today, Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020, at 3 p.m., the World Health Organization reports 1,353,361 confirmed cases of COVID-19 globally, with 79,235 deaths. In the Federation to date, 196 persons have been tested, with 11 confirmed positive, 115 confirmed negative, and 70 results pending with 0 deaths. Of the 11 confirmed positive, 8 are imported cases and 3 are import-related or sporadic cases. There are currently 29 persons quarantined in a government facility, while 208 persons are quarantined at home. 11 persons remain in isolation. Of these 11, 10 are COVID-19 positive and they are symptom-free and recovering. 1 is also positive, has symptoms and continue to improve. To date, 415 persons have been released from quarantine. We are reminded that our community health workers are still working hard to trace and monitor persons who would have had contact with confirmed cases. This is done in an effort to reduce the possibility of community transmission.
CMO Laws has reminded the nation to continue to practice social distancing and appropriate respiratory measures.
Persons with confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19 are to remain in strict isolation. Persons who have had significant and direct contact with a confirmed case are automatically placed in quarantine. Please note, you are required to remain in quarantine for a minimum of 14 days, after which you will be officially evaluated by the district medical officer and the health team before you are given the nod of approval to exit quarantine.
The police have laid charges against 18 of the 35 persons who were arrested for breaking the curfew. Announcement of the charge came from Division A Commander Cromwell Henry.
To date, we have arrested 35 persons who have breached the curfew restrictions, and these persons are spread, as I mentioned earlier, throughout the entire Federation, both St. Kitts and Nevis, with the majority coming from Bastille. 18 of those have been charged, and 17 has been reported for summons.
Henry also spoke to the new measures being implemented.
The Honorable Prime Minister announced last night, that to manage the crowds in town on partial curfew days, the Federation has been divided into 4 zones, each island being divided into 2 zones. In St. Kitts, Zone 1 extends from Lavington via Sadler's all the way to 4th Street and include Taylor's, Frigate Bay, Bird Rock, and the Southeast Peninsula. Zone 2 extends from Parsons Village via Sandy Point all the way up to 4th Street. That includes constituencies 2 and 3, St. Peter's, and all the villages west of 4th Street, all the areas west of 4th Street. This was done in order to reduce the number of persons coming into Bastille on shopping days. We have seen much success out of that, in that the police have reported that the crowds at these shopping areas were much less and more easily managed than on previous days. Of course, there were some hiccups, and we see areas that we could improve upon for the next day.
Meanwhile, the commander announced that 8 persons were found to be socializing and or accessing the beach.
2 of them were at the beach in Fig Tree, and 6 were just hanging out under a tree, drinking and just socializing ordinarily. This type of activity is not permitted. You should only be out of your premises if you are accessing an essential service, medical supplies, food, etc. So those persons are presently in police custody.
Division A Commander Cromwell Henry.
Barbados today, members of the disabled community are facing significant challenges as the country remains on lockdown in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to President of the Barbados Council for the Disabled, Kerry Ann Eiffel, who says some members have no means of accessing money as financial institutions temporarily discontinued over-the-counter transactions as part of government's measures to stem the spread of the virus. In an interview with Barbados Today yesterday, she also raised concern about access of pension checks for some members.
One of the most urgent situations we have, of course, that leads to mind is today's pension day. And some persons with disabilities are pleased that they can go and access their pensions today and tomorrow, but others are still at a very big disadvantage. So, for example, if you were a person whose health was so severely compromised that you are urged not to leave home, how do you get access to your check? Provisions have been put in place for persons 70 years and older. But I didn't hear anything about what happens in the event of a person with a disability. Now, again, it could be that I missed the announcement because, as I keep saying, everything is so fluid, it might have been left out of the part that I heard, but addressed later. But that is one area of concern. Another is for some financial institutions. The government pension program is a direct deposit with certain institutions, but there are others who are not set up to receive in that manner.
Barbadians are again being encouraged to listen to authorities and to stay at home to stop the spread of the coronavirus. The latest plea is coming from Anglican Bishop Reverend Michael Maxwell, who also urged residents to use their time to reconnect with family and to focus on their relationship with God. The bishop said although the country was facing a difficult period, Barbadians must not become overly anxious.
As we together face this very difficult moment in time, I wish to encourage all of us not to become overly anxious about the moment, but rather to maintain a strong faith in our divine Creator God, that He will bring us through it all, giving us a spirit of power to withstand these tough economic times and to overcome the coronavirus. We are to allow Him as well to give us that spirit of love, to look out and reach out and care for each other as good stewards, especially the most vulnerable among us, and to allow Him further to give us a sound and sober mind to exercise some self-discipline and deny ourselves of the business-as-usual outdoor activities for the sake of preserving our lives and the lives of others.
The bishop also urged Barbadians to keep the faith during these difficult times.
As we are called now to observe a national 24-hour curfew, to stay at home and to stay safe, it is my firm belief and conviction that God offers us this time to rest for a while and to reflect deeply on our lives, to reconnect with Him, our family, and others, and to rediscover the essentials of this life. It is a time to be still and know that He is God. Let us therefore keep the faith. Let us be empowered to face this moment in time. Let us grow in love of Him and of each other and discipline ourselves to the greater cause of preserving lives as we become conscious, my friends, at this time of the frailty, the value, and the sanctity of human life.
European Union nationals stranded in Barbados due to the COVID-19 pandemic to return home via special chartered flights. A chartered Condor flight left Barbados yesterday afternoon, while another is scheduled to leave today to transport the remaining visitors to Germany.
This is Tracking Coronavirus on CVM Live, a regular update on the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Aladdin Love. Jamaica has hit 63 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 4 deaths. A short while ago, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton announced the 4th death. Now, the 4 new cases include 2 females, both 48 years of age, another female who is 26 years old, and a male who is also 26 years old, all of whom are contacts of a confirmed case from Kingston and St. Andrew. There are 30 imported cases, 22 the number of import-related cases, and 11 the number of cases under investigation. The average age of the confirmed patients is 49 years, ranging from a minimum age of 12 to a maximum of 87 years. The median age is 50. Of the 63 confirmed cases, 29 are females and 34 are males. 9 persons have fully recovered and been released from hospital. Now, Cabinet has approved the use of the National Arena as a 72-bed field hospital that can cater to up to 130 people. This would be an isolation facility for mildly symptomatic persons. The work is being spearheaded by the Jamaica Defence Force. Also, 100,000 N95 masks are being donated to the Medical Association of Jamaica to outfit private practitioners as part of the national COVID-19 response efforts. Now, here's a breakdown of confirmed COVID-19 across the parishes. Kingston and St. Andrew have registered 4 new cases, bringing the total to 18. Clarendon has 14 confirmed cases, followed by St. Anne and Manchester with 6, and Portland 5. St. Catherine and St. James each have 4. St. Elizabeth has 3, Westmoreland 2, and St. Mary 1. Hanover, St. Thomas and Trelawney are the only parishes without reported cases. The island-wide nightly curfew has been extended. Other measures to address the COVID-19 pandemic, including work from home, closure of the island's borders, and others will also be extended in accordance with the relevant orders.
This is Al Jazeera.
Some towns in Indonesia, fears about the coronavirus can quickly turn into rage. This ambulance was on its way to the local cemetery in Banyumas, carrying the body of a COVID-19 patient. Turn back, the men say. They don't want the body buried in their town. This is the fate for many victims of COVID-19, alone and isolated in their final hours and unwanted in death. The local mayor tries to get the protesters to disperse.
Bahaya penularan itu.
The risk of getting the virus from a dead body is low. The living can talk, cough, and sneeze. The dead cannot. We have explained this over and over again.
Undeterred by reassurance from local leaders, similar scenes are playing out across the country. In at least 3 provinces, the bodies of those who died from COVID-19 had to be moved to other cemeteries because of community anger.
Traditional burial practices have to be put aside for now. Bodies are disinfected and wrapped in layers of sanitized plastic before burial.
The community need to trust that kind of procedure and do not need to worry about, and no stigma.
Local administrations are preparing extra plots across their communities. In Jakarta, there were more than 4,000 burials in March, a huge spike compared to previous months. Indonesia has one of the world's lowest rates of COVID-19 testing, and there are fears many people have died not knowing whether they had the virus. Some families do have that certainty, but choose to ignore it. It's not clear why the hospital released the body of this COVID-19 patient to her family, but they unwrapped her body promptly. The World Health Organization says bodies of COVID-19 patients are generally not infectious, but it recommends families avoid touching them. This outbreak isn't just changing how people live, but how they die as well. Jessica Washington, Al Jazeera, Jakarta.
This is the Carib Update News Service. I'm Wendy Chateau reporting. Puerto Rico changing approach to classifying coronavirus deaths. This is the big story we're tracking this hour on the AM edition of Newsbreak for Thursday, April 9, 2020. Details to this and more straight ahead. Now for the details. Puerto Rico has announced that it will broaden its classification of COVID-19 deaths to include suspected cases that were never confirmed, addressing a problem of undercounting also seen around the world. The U.S. territory has faced heavy criticism for not implementing widespread testing and for relying on limited data to implement a strict curfew and to produce estimates of when the peak of coronavirus cases might occur. Health Secretary Lorenzo Gonzalez said doctors can classify a death as related to COVID-19 without having to wait for lab results. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate without that confirmation if circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree of certainty. Cuban authorities are warning that they have identified several cases of local transmission of the coronavirus and announced that 25 healthcare workers, including 14 doctors and 8 nurses, also contracted the disease. Public Health Minister Jose Angel Portal said at a press conference that one of the doctors was in critical condition. 2 technicians and an ambulance driver were also in the group. Portal said some of the infected staff had contracted the virus from patients who did not initially show symptoms of COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus. This is Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service. In more news, the European Union is providing a grant of 8 million euros or $8.6 million to help the Caribbean fight the coronavirus outbreak. The grant itself will be implemented by the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, and overall is expected to help improve the detection, surveillance, prevention, control, and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to an official statement from the EU, the funds will be used to purchase COVID-19 test kits, masks, and other personal protective equipment, testing regimens, and other materials required for coronavirus testing. The grant will also increase the capacity of regional countries to carry out laboratory testing for COVID-19, support coronavirus quarantine and isolation procedures, as well as contact tracing. ExxonMobil says that production at the Payara project, its third oil development in Guyana, could be postponed due to delays in government approvals as the company scales back spending elsewhere due to the crude price crash. Payara's startup had been slated for as early as 2023 and was expected to eventually produce some 220,000 barrels per day of crude, according to Exxon's website. The firm and its partners Hess Corp and China's CNOOC Limited have discovered more than 8 billion barrels of recoverable oil in the South American country, which has no history of production. A new, rapidly spreading outbreak of stony coral tissue loss disease, referred to as SCTLD, has infiltrated some nearly 40 miles of Grand Bahama's southern coastline, killing a wide range of corals, including some that are already endangered. Silent and deadly if the outbreak goes unchecked, scientists believe the fallout could prove worse than the 1930s marine disease, which wiped out sponging beds across the country and led to the crash of the Bahama Islands, then #1 industry, sponging. The report for Grand Bahama, submitted to government agencies on March 16, linked the introduction of the disease to the Bahamas with cruise ships and large commercial vessels. These are some of the top stories from around the Caribbean this hour. This has been Newsbreak from the Carib Update News Service, the Caribbean's newsroom. Reporting this hour, I am Wendy Chateau.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. There's been another massive increase in US unemployment as the country struggles to contain the coronavirus outbreak. More than 6.5 million new claims were made in just the past week. This takes the number of jobs lost over the past 3 weeks to more than 15 million. Our economics correspondent Andrew Walker reports.
This figure for new claims shows the continued devastating impact the coronavirus and steps being taken to tackle it are having on the US jobs market. Once again, there were more than 6 million new claims for benefits. Until 2 weeks ago, the record was less than 750,000. It's increasingly clear that the United States, in common with almost every other country, is in the early stages of a deep recession, a fact underlined by these truly dreadful official figures. For economic policymakers, that is unavoidable, and their priority is likely to be trying to minimise the permanent economic damage that persists when the health crisis is over.
The head of the International Monetary Fund has said the coronavirus pandemic is inflicting global economic damage on a scale not seen for nearly a century. Kristalina Georgieva warned that global growth would turn sharply negative in 2020 and stressed that the bleak outlook applied to advanced and developing economies alike.
Emerging markets and low-income nations across Africa, Latin America and much of Asia are at high risk. Many face the dreadful challenge of fighting the virus in densely populated cities and poverty-stricken slums, with few resources to begin with.
The World Bank is projecting that sub-Saharan Africa will go into recession for the first time in 25 years as a result of coronavirus. It says economies could contract by between 2 and 5% this year. Dr. Matshidiso Moeti from the World Health Organization called on all African nations to support each other.
The economic impact of this pandemic worldwide is extremely severe, and we expect, of course, since our countries have fragile economies, that it will be more so in African countries, especially for many of the vulnerable communities and households in Africa. The health, social and economic consequences of the pandemic will be profound, and urge and encourage that we all work together.
The Italian Prime Minister has called the coronavirus pandemic the biggest ever test for the European Union. Giuseppe Conte warned that the bloc could fail if it didn't take decisive action to help member states hit by COVID-19. This comes ahead of a renewed attempt by EU finance ministers to thrash out agreement on a package of economic support worth more than €500 billion. Divisions on the extent to which loans should be tied to economic reform prevented agreement earlier this week. There have been separate wranglings over whether EU countries should jointly issue bonds, which would see them agreeing to share debts. World News from the BBC. Germany is allowing in the first flights of Romanian agricultural workers to help redress a shortage of farm labour caused by coronavirus restrictions. Up to 80,000 foreign seasonal workers in total will be allowed in this month and next on direct flights. The scheme will operate under strict conditions. Workers will be subject to health checks on arrival and will have to stay on the farm, separated from all other employees, for 2 weeks. In Romania, a criminal investigation has been launched after 10 newborn babies tested positive for coronavirus. They've apparently caught the disease from hospital staff rather than their mothers. The case in Timișoara has highlighted the problem of infections in Romanian hospitals. Members of OPEC are holding a virtual meeting with Russia and other producers to discuss cutting supply in order to stabilise the volatile oil price. For prices have fallen dramatically since last month due to a glut caused by a row between Saudi Arabia and Russia, together with a huge drop in demand because of the coronavirus outbreak. Samir Hashmi reports.
The meeting will be attended by some of the world's largest oil producers who will try to work out a deal to make historic production cuts to counter the slump in demand caused by the coronavirus outbreak. However, Saudi Arabia and Russia have signaled that any decision would depend on the United States joining in. Last week, President Donald Trump said that he had brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Russia that could lead to cuts of about 10 million to 15 million barrels of oil per day. But Washington is yet to confirm if it will take part in the deal.
The Islamic State group in Syria is mounting an attack on government forces and pro-government militias in the east of the country. The clashes are taking place around the town of Sukna, which lies on the highway that connects Palmyra to Deir ez-Zor. One report says that IS has taken Sukna, but this has not yet been confirmed. And that's the latest BBC World News.
That was the Win FM headline news, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carrie Brewery, CMC Trading, The Grange.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Walwin, low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwin, people you can trust.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Found the sound 98.9 Win FM weather.
is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
Win FM weather.
Well, the forecast comes to you. Compliment Sweet Cane. Well, today, sunny conditions will predominate. Temperature high of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 32 degrees Celsius. A low of 72 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 22 degrees Celsius. Sunny conditions all day long, and you'll have winds 11 to 26 kilometers per hour, that's 6 to 14 knots. You'll have some light and variable winds from time to time as well overnight. Seas will have waves 5 feet high, 1.5 meters. Sunset today, 26 minutes after 6 o'clock. Sunrise tomorrow, 5:58 a.m. So, sunny conditions today, and looks like a lovely day to be in the Caribbean. The weather forecast your way compliments Sweet Cane. Sweet Cane, the proud sponsors of the Win FM Midday Weather Forecast.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas, announces king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts. We have the best service and competitive rates on LCL and FCL cargo, including D&E containers, cars, heavy equipment, buses, boats, and barrels from Miami to St. Kitts. LCL pickup service anywhere in the U.S. Call local agents SL Horseman and Company Limited at 869-465-4086 or 869-662-5008 for further details. King Ocean's king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts Nevis. King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas.
How does it feel when you got that feeling? You got the flavor you love. How does it feel when you know you're not dreaming? There is nothing above.
How you feel when things come together? How you feel when everything nice? How you feel when you savor the flavor, the feeling you get when you taste every bite?
All right, we're back on Voices on Win FM 90.9 as promised. We're going to ask our callers to hold off a minute and just be a little patient with us. We did promise you that we want to have a conversation around the whole issue of increased reports of domestic abuse. And we're going to play a little bit of a report here now from Al Jazeera, and then we're going to get a comment on it. And then we come back to take your calls.
The global lockdown and restrictions have created a situation in which women at risk of abuse may feel like they no longer have a way out. Here's a look at some of these statistics from around the world. Now, the French government has offered to pay for hotel rooms for domestic violence victims after reports of abuse jumped by 36% since the lockdown began. 2 women have been murdered. India saw abuse cases double in the first week of restrictions on movement nationwide. That's according to the National Commission for Women. In Australia, internet searches for domestic violence support networks rose by 75%. The National Domestic Abuse Helpline in the UK has experienced a 25% increase in calls and online requests since the lockdown came in. And Tunisia's Women's Affairs Minister says abuse cases have gone up at 5 times the usual rate since a curfew was imposed in March. Well, Lee Giordano is Director of Training at Men Stopping Violence. He joins us on Skype from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for your time. So we are talking now about violence primarily against women while under lockdown. How do you do your job, engage with men to end violence against women during this time?
Well, first, thank you for having me on this morning. So our job has become a little bit more complicated now that we're all working virtually. Many of our programs, our intervention programs with men who have used abusive behavior are now transitioning and being conducted virtually in online classes, as well as our general engagement effort. So our mission at Men Stopping Violence is to engage communities and men to take action to end violence against women. And so basically, we're now a virtual engagement organization.
But I guess it's going to be difficult or perhaps impossible, isn't it, to reach those households that are under lockdown that haven't engaged with anyone before. It's going to be difficult to reach those people. This is quite an unusual time with a global pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a combination of dynamics right now that are increasing rates of domestic violence. So we know that stress levels have gone up. People are financially strained. People are losing their jobs. People's normal lives are being disrupted. But we also know that when isolation, when victims are isolated, they have less recourse, and so instances of violence go up. We also know that when there isn't a consequence for an abuser's use of violence, then they can abuse with impunity. And I think that is what is happening now. The abused person isn't able to get out a call for help because the abuser is always there with them.
How do we include the male perspective? I mean, when I saw we were speaking to someone from Men Stopping Violence, it sort of raised my eyebrows because I'm interested in how do you think we include the male perspective and the male role when talking about violence against women without shifting the focus away from women's voices, from women's stories, from women's experiences who are primarily the victims?
Well, we have to acknowledge that if women are primarily the victim, then it is likely that men are primarily the perpetrators. But most men are not perpetrators of violence. But most men also are not taking responsibility for helping to end or reduce the occurrences of violence. So our message to men is, even if you're not one who's engaged in abusive or controlling behavior, you have a responsibility in your community to take action, to speak up, to confront men in your community who may be engaging in those behaviors. One of the things that we're offering currently is resources and help over the phone so that anyone who's using abuse can call us and we can help with tools or options. Anyone who knows someone who is using abuse can call us and we can help them think about how they may intervene or have a conversation with that man. So it is an issue that primarily affects women, but men have a huge role that they could be playing if they were willing to step up. And that's really the goal of our organization is helping men to do that.
Thank you for your time there, Lee Giordano, Director of Training at Men Stopping Violence.
Thank you.
Kavita Krishnan is an activist and secretary of the All India Progressive Women's Association. She joins us on Skype from New Delhi. Thank you for your time. Just tell us, what are you seeing in India? Hundreds of women are reaching out. Put that in perspective for us.
The lockdown was announced without any warning. So India had warning of the approaching COVID-19 crisis since January 30th. but the government did not tell people that any lockdown might be in the offing. And they suddenly announced this 21-day lockdown. That has left a lot of women who suffer domestic violence taken by surprise. So they have not been able to secure themselves or to leave the homes. So they find themselves trapped with their abuser in many cases. And I think that the number of cases must be much higher than what the National Commission of Women is talking about, because India does not have any national hotline or any state-level hotline for domestic violence survivors. So this is a very bad situation. And there's also other things compounding the situation, which is in India in general, even when there is no lockdown, the tendency for the police and other government authorities to take domestic violence very lightly, or to make excuses for it, or to ask the woman complainant to go back to the house of the abuser and not expect any help is extremely common. And now clearly it is more common. I mean, I only can speak from anecdotal experience because of my own organization's experience in dealing with domestic violence calls during the lockdown. And I can tell you that the pressures, it's explosive. It's an explosive situation, because there are tremendous tensions because of the lockdown. So loss of work, loss of survival resources, greater domestic burdens on women who are dealing with this household situation where there is less food and it's more difficult to survive. And in that situation, abusive men have tended to take it out on women inside the household, especially husbands against wives. And so this is an extremely concerning situation.
So
yes.
what are the options then for women in India who need help?
Very few options exist as of now, because in general, it's like what Ms. Ocasio-Cortez says in the US, that the pandemic has poured gasoline on our existing troubles. So India in general has very poor domestic violence, help. So we do have a law against domestic violence, and there are supposed to be respondents to help women who are in trouble. But we have no shelters. So the state-run shelters tend to be viewed as jails by the women. So their women are not treated well there. And so we basically have very little public spending on shelters in general, or in other forms of help. And in this lockdown situation, naturally, the kind of help and resources have gone down, because here, even if you need and I say this from experience, even if you need an ambulance in a hurry for someone who is suddenly ill, you can't get it in the city of Delhi, which is India's capital city. All right. Now, just imagine, what women have gone through when they have had trouble. If they call the police say, "What is this? We are in the middle of this pandemic, and you're complaining about a quarrel with your husband? Don't bother." So recently, some feminists put out a little video explainer in India about domestic. This was prior to the lockdown, about how the police tend to play down domestic violence and make excuses for it. And this is again something which is all the more exacerbated during the lockdown.
A lot of work to be done. Thank you for your time, Kavita Krishnan from the All India Progressive Women's Association.
You're tuning in with FM 90.9. That report from Al Jazeera, looking at the issue of gender-based violence, domestic violence. And I have on the line with me psychologist Naima Hazel. Good morning. Good afternoon, I should say. And I'm losing track of my time. I don't know what's going on here. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Bacchus. Well, good to have you on the line. I wanted to get your perspective. This issue of domestic violence in the context of the Caribbean, as a psychologist, as someone who's worked and studied in this particular field, what can you tell us about some of the stresses and some of the, perhaps the options available to people who may be victims of domestic violence?
Okay, I guess we could start with the stressors. I think we can all imagine being at home what some of the stressors would be stuck in this particular virus. And I say stuck because a lot of us feel like we're stuck at home, So when people ask you to find a place to shelter, you would assume that everybody has a safe place to, hunker down and weather it. But sometimes when you're on quarantine at home with your other family members, sometimes it's a blessing. Like, some children are very happy. Their parents are there. They can spend time with them. They don't usually get time to spend. Some teenagers probably not so happy. Their parents have more time to keep an eye on them. But it also can be a curse because even though there will be opportunities for families to come together and strengthen their bonds, there's also a lot of anxiety, depression, frustration, anger. There's a lot of questions people don't have answers to. Mom and dad might be frustrated. We have a lot of problems that we didn't even have like a month ago. So there's not even any way that you could have prepared because like you didn't even have those same stresses a month ago. And then you have a lot of issues that we don't think of in our particular homes. We've got multiple families. Where do they quarantine? What do people do if they don't have a steady income? How do they support their families? How are we all managing? So all of those things put considerable stress on us and relationships. And that's even stressors that would be on a regular home. So if you consider what could happen in a situation where not everybody is safe at home and there's a lot of tension or domestic violence, then in those cases, then home is a really dangerous place to be. So when people are telling you have to go home and you have to stay home, like a lot of people who are abused or in intimate abusive relationships, whether you're children, women and men, people always think of domestic violence as a relationship between women and men. They don't really think about the abuse between women and men and families and children as well. So sometimes with the stress, with everybody being a mandatory lockdown, it's just a lot of potential there for more physical and emotional abuse. So everything else then now becomes elevated because you're all stuck in this space together. So if you'd had the opportunity before to go to work, so you get a break, or go to school, so you get a break, or join this club, or do this thing, or go to this activity, things that keep you out of the house and out of contact, then that was good. But now everybody is in the house together. So that would be one of the reasons that domestic violence would be elevated at this particular time, right? So I think that the problem that we're having is because we're more exposed to the violence, the additional stress, the potential economic and job losses are creating a lot of stress in the home, and people are more and more frustrated. You have to see those people every day. There's more opportunities for conflict, and now a lot of us are trapped, or people are trapped in that space. So that creates a real difficulty for us. Now, one of the things that you just asked me, I think, was what options people have.
Yes.
I believe was your question.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm sure there's somebody out there thinking, like, right now, what are their options? Because if you think about the ways that you could be disadvantaged, like in this particular situation, sometimes it's something so small, Clive, as like the remote control. Like, you're not thinking about, like, in your home right now. It could be somebody might be saying, oh, I don't know anybody who's abused. Like, I don't need any options or anything. But some people are in their home right now being controlled by their TV remote control. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So, right. So, because domestic abuse, people don't see it, it's really a control relationship. It's about power and domination, who have control in the home. Now you're all in the home, you have to share everything. So it's who controls the TV, who controls when we eat, how we control how we move about the house, a lot of digital abuse and manipulation, when we turn on the fan, when we turn off the fan, who has the fan. All those little things can create a lot of, elevate a lot of issues of violence in the home. So,
and of course, being there as well, pardon the interruption, being there as well, you have a lot more time to put the focus or to have the attention that's maybe surrounding issues of health, security, and even money, because, you may not be home all day, so these things are passing by. But when you're spending a lot of time at home, those enduring, if you like, issues are in your face all the time.
Well, yes, of course, and you never interrupt, Clive. I always love to have a conversation with you. Yeah, of course, those issues are there, and they're always ever present, but you have a lot of ways of avoiding them. Remember I said earlier about multiple relationships and
Yes.
things that we do to divert our attention from the issues that we have at home. But when you can't divert your attention and you have to address them, and now they're elevated, because, I know a lot of people are at home, but a lot of people are at home and don't have any way to get food to eat. Even if they could get out, it was their zone, they don't have any money to go out to eat. And some people have multiple families. You have to choose, who's getting the money. It's a lot of tension from men and from women as well. So it does elevate a lot of the issues in the home.
Now, the UN has described the violence against men and women as the shadow pandemic. Reports of millions of women, according to United Nations, are reporting domestic abuse. Now, my question now has to do with, if you were to break it down a bit, and what advice would you offer women who are, one, being subjected to, I mean, and yes, we know you can't leave the home at the moment because of whatever. What advice would you offer? Is there anything that they can access online? Is there any way they can get help without having to leave the home?
I want to give you a more promising outlook. I want to, but like you were saying, like 1 in 3 women in the world experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime, And I want to say that locally, because I can only speak locally, that there is a lot of solutions. So coming up, I know that just before the pandemic reached this level, there was the talk of the Garden of Rebirth, So we were looking at options for women locally for domestic violence, and some people actually said that wasn't a big issue. It's not a big issue. You can't really have women going in this place. People are going to go. There wasn't all of the support that really should have been behind it, but now you would see why there's a need for that. So I think that because these are special times, maybe we need to take special measures, and maybe we need to be pushing towards facilitating that facility that they would be able to provide services sooner. I know they were planning to open first, like a soft opening, I think, in the celebration of the proprietor's grandmother's birthday, which I know you know is Etsu Bradshaw. And I know they were planning on doing that, and I think maybe we should facilitate, because we are still working from home, government is still working, that maybe there's an opportunity to facilitate opening that and getting that facility functioning properly. Nobody wants to make haste and create issues, but maybe that would be something that we should be considering fast-tracking, because I know that they've been working towards that for a very long time. And we also have to look at options for families and children, like, for example, what we presently is just the children's home. So, the children's home, maybe we might have to look, the government might have to look at making a special relationship between the Child Welfare Board and the children's home to facilitate emergency care and at-risk placement for children who might be at high risk at this time. Because, when everybody's in the home, people also don't think about situations of incest and sexual abuse with children, because you can't really hide. If you're coming home in the afternoons and abusing the children before your mother gets home, now everybody's in the house together, and, it's very difficult if you have pedophilic tendencies to control your tendencies in a confined space. So we're going to see a lot more increases also in sexual-based and physical, not just physical violence and financial abuse, but sexually-based violence against not just women, but also against children. So we have to be looking at that and what we presently have. So I think we have to look at what our options are in terms of our civic responsibility and supporting our NGOs, and our NGOs supporting government, and government in turn working together for us to provide services in this particular time for people who are in emergent care.
And finally, what would you like to say to someone who sometimes has a difficulty with anger management, if that's a big term for it, but they have a way of blurting out things that they wish they could take back. But having said them, it sparks a fire, if you like.
This is a really, I know everybody's thinking about the crisis of COVID, but it's also a very good time for reflection and resetting. And as a psychologist, we don't really have control over, as any individual human being, we don't really have control over what other people do. We only have control over ourselves. So if you were in the situation of an abuser, that person made you so angry because, they didn't make the toast right, or your child made because they wouldn't stop you screaming with this TV show, So all the things that make you angry. But I think it's a good time for us to look inward and really reflect on ourselves, who we are as people, who we want to be, how we are in this world. And I think it's a good time just for self-reflection, even if you're not a religious or a spiritual person, whatever place you find to be centered, because even being in the quarantine in it of itself is a challenge for people. People have to set a schedule. You have to get up in the morning. You have to make yourself breakfast. You have to do a exercise or read something. You have to shower before noon. You have to put on clothes. Try combing your hair, even if you go outside to walk in your garden. But if you don't, it's very easy for people to fall into depression. Because, like following SARS, when people were quarantined, studies out of Canada showed that 29% of people out of the SARS study, and people were only quarantined for 10 days, experienced anxiety, PTSD symptoms, and 31% reported depression. And that was 10 days. And I myself was in quarantine almost 25 days until I got released officially from quarantine yesterday. So you really have to make the effort to do some self-care. And this is a good opportunity for us to reset and really do some self-care and reflect on how we are with ourselves and how we reflect on our families and how we live together not just at home and in our families, but with our friends and our communities. And I think St. Kitts is a small community, St. Kitts and Nevis. We're a small federation, and it's a good opportunity for us to reach out and support each other, especially in these issues of abuse. If you know that you know somebody being abused, this isn't your time to be sitting at home and calling your friends to gossip to say, oh, gosh, you're getting so much blows this week, This is the time for you to offer some support, some help, go over and offer some food or, a call or message just to check on people. And we have to do that too, even though, you don't want to get all caught up in watching all this COVID stuff on TV and listening to the news and following all the WhatsApp messages and commenting on everything. You have to find some other balance for our lives. So this is a good opportunity for us to also reset.
Well, I want to thank you very much for talking to us today and talking to our listeners as well. Of course, we always wish you well. So now that you're out of quarantine, I do hope that you're gonna have some fun. All right, thank you so much.
I'll be honest, I didn't mind. I want to say I didn't mind being in. I had traveled within the last 6 weeks in a quarantine in the 60s when they started doing quarantine. And I feel like people should just be more willing to go into quarantine, because if you have loved ones or anybody who can be around loved ones, then it's really important if we care about each other. We don't really have the resources here to manage us all getting sick like in other places in the world, which are already poorly managing it. So we really have to be more preventative while our numbers are low and just stay at home, because it's the right thing to do, not just for yourself, but because there's not enough resource for us. When we all start getting sick, we're all going to be broke. Yep. We're all going to suffer together. So, it'd be really good if everybody just stay home. Mm-hmm. If you can stay home, just stay home. Find something to do at home, and just protect yourself and your family.
Well, thank you very much, and all the best to you.
You too, love.
All right, take care. All right, that's psychologist Naima Hazel speaking to us in the context of the increased reports we're getting of domestic violence. We heard the Al Jazeera report. We've also had an appeal from the United Nations Secretary General as well, on this particular issue. So thank you so much. Of course, you're listening to Voices. We'll take your calls now. A very good afternoon to you. You're live and on the air.
Yes, pleasant good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, I guess this is just people complaining again, and we have to make sacrifices. I'm being sarcastic, Mr. Bacchus, because
you're going to be laughing, You know, there's an old saying, who feels it knows it,
Exactly, because some people feel when you speak out against certain things, they're complaining. Oh, the government knows what they're doing. We have not been saying the government does not know what they're doing. Some of us are saying they could do it a little better. They don't have all the ideas. We put them there to serve us as the body politic, as the average man and woman out there. Some people just have tunnel vision and are all wrapped up in their own agendas. I am not such a person, Mr. Bacchus. I agree that the zoning appears to be working. I had no issue with the 72-hour lockdowns and the normal curfew because people were not adhering to the protocols. All I am saying is this 7-day lockdown, people will eventually run out of supplies because it's not everybody who is in a financial state right now that can afford to buy all of those resources to last them that time. But for some strange reason, oh, we're complaining, you're nitpicking, and the people who are giving this sentiment, they don't live in St. Kitts. Where they live in, they have shelter in place, and you can go out if necessary. They have a 24-hour lockdown. They can go and do their shopping once they adhere to its distancing and you wear your mask. It's not a problem. I have no issue with the 24-hour lockdown. All I'm simply saying, along with others, is the 7 days is a little too long. I could understand that to keep people from trying to take advantage of the Easter weekend right down till Monday. You lock down the place to discourage people from trying to go on the beach and stuff like that. But come on, at least let go Tuesday and Wednesday so people could resupply. A single mother right now being laid off from the private sector with 3 children is not going to be able to afford 7 days supply of food. And people need to stop being so selfish and self-centered. You can't just think about yourself. I am not thinking about myself, Mr. Bacchus. I am diabetic and I am visually impaired and I live by myself. So I could survive the 7 days. Once I have my medication, only me when I have to feed. I have to think about others. What's going to happen when, before the 7 days are up, people run out of food and start venturing out to find things to eat? Hopefully the police is going to be understanding and
You there, sir?
Hello?
Yes, you there?
Hello?
Yes, yeah, we listen to
hopefully
you.
the security forces are going to be understanding and give a little leeway. But if it's going to be a lot of people, it's going to be confusion. All I'm saying is the authority figures, please look into this more thoroughly, as you just played in your previous clip. Domestic abuse. What are these women going to do? And trust me, Mr. Bacchus, this can happen here in the Federation too. It's been happening before. So we need to look at all of these aspects and stop finger wagging and just trying to shame people for just asking simple questions and looking simple solutions. We are all in this together. We understand the danger, but you don't need to pound a 4-inch nail with a 3-pound sledgehammer. And then after the fact, you come and say, oh, well, we could have done it different. Just give people a little leave.
All right, caller, you seem to have just dropped out on me. That had nothing to do with it, I can tell you. No, that was not my doing. You just dropped it. You can call back, though. We get the point you're making. But remember, at the same time, the authorities have said, look, this is all something that is happening now, and changes will be made along the way. So I suspect that there was going to be some level of evaluation as to current measures, and from time to time, there may be some adjustments being made. As we said earlier on, yesterday should have gone until 3 o'clock in the afternoon in terms of shopping for essential items. So it was extended until 5 o'clock. Of course, I can't speak on behalf of the authorities. I'm not, that's above my pay grade, but I'm just saying, looking at that as an example, it's quite possible adjustments could be made in the context of what you just described. There's some people who are doing quite well, and they don't want to be disturbed. So everything sounds like a problem if you complain. But if someone is standing on your feet, you ought to say something, I think. Let's go back to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Caller, you live and on the air. Very good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, good afternoon, my dear. Thanks for calling.
You're talking about domestic violence. I know you give some the recording from India and another country, but have you? Is it increased in St. Kitts Nevis? Maybe you should ask the authority. Have there been any increase and calls in any increase in domestic violence? Is that the case in our country? Hello?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I was asking you if domestic violence is, from what the recording that you played for India and the other country, is that the case in St. Kitts Nevis?
Well, I know there's domestic violence everywhere. I don't think St. Kitts Nevis would be an exception.
No, we're talking about the increase. So that I'm asking you, seeing that with the lockdown, is that the case in our country? Is there an increase?
Yes.
And what I'm saying is that if you're not sure, maybe you should call the authorities and find out if is there an increase in calls or
yes, there is.
something like that.
Yes, there is.
And
yes.
Is the police station them still
Yes.
open?
Yes.
If there is somebody having need to call.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. I got a bit distracted when you asked the question a moment ago, so that's why I asked you to repeat it. Yes, there are increased reports. The police have said that. So,
okay.
Yeah, that is so.
So the police, so somebody can call the police and they go out.
Yes,
They're
of course.
active.
Yes, of course.
Right.
You have hotlines you can call in to get help if you need help. Yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. All right, we go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're live and on the air, and good afternoon to you. You're on Voices on Win FM.
Greetings.
Yes, greetings, my brother.
Away from the box there. I don't want to feed. All right. Thanks for being with me. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay. You know this this present situation, yeah, not only dictates things happening in relationship, and not just the violence, but how the things are going to manifest. I see what man would say, manifest, because I just said go. We're dealing with human being and the thing as what it is, you don't know. A lot of things going to manifest. Holy passing thing. No, with the domestic violence, no, we don't want it. That's a no-no. Just like how other things is no-no. So, whatever manifests, we just have to, once in life, we in the land of the living just have to just deal with it. So that the whole thing don't get chaotic, so to speak. You understand? Because that's what the thing said, in every dispensation period when they have things are going, there's always a way out. There's always a way to keep the balance, keep the sanity, keep the keep the thing civilized. So I just said go, Once again, we want to use the opportunity to wish everyone all the best. We see the thing there with the testing thing given by the prince to the ministry. We see it a tag along, and see it come out there. Some people say, I'm a politician. But it don't have to be so that you give them under political disguise. It don't have to be so. That can be a judging, and a wrong judgment too. And inside of that, we see the whole heap of political flares and, the song we give out towards keeping politics out of the thing. Well, Marcus Garvey, he done say, let me seal up that. The song we give out about keeping politics out of the thing, the politics just in the thing. But Marcus Garvey done say, we back that to get against in the visitors. I hear the Honorable Prime Minister talk about him too when him come here, what him say. Him say, one of the things him say is, the back against the wall. And as me talk to him, back against the wall. Yes, him say, we never know who we really are, individually and collectively, until we back get against the wall in such a way that it forces us to know. It forces us, if we don't want to know by will, back against the wall, it forces us to know what we ought to know and to live from that knowledge or that knowledge. Blessed love. Thanks for listening us,
Yes, man. Thank you so much, my brother. And blessed love to you. As you said, sometimes people don't know themselves until they're back against the wall. To some extent, COVID-19 is a scenario like that. It's reviving some of the traditions that we had in some parts of the Caribbean. Like, leave your shoes outside the door, take your shoes off before you enter the house. Don't go lie down on the bed with your working clothes on. Go and take a bath when you come home. Wash your hand before you rub your face. Don't put your hand in your mouth unless your hand clean. We got some licks for that, man. All right, you listen to Voices on Win FM 90.9. Let's hear now from our partners. So now that conversation started again about what you need to do with your hands, what you can't do with your hands.
King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas, announces king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts. We have the best service and competitive rates on LCL and FCL cargo, including D&E containers, cars, heavy equipment, buses, boats, and barrels from Miami to St. Kitts. LCL pickup service anywhere in the U.S. Call local agents SL Horseman and Company Limited at 869-465-4086 or 869-662-5008 for further details. King Ocean's king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts Nevis. King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas.
How does it feel when you got that feeling? You got the flavor you love. How does it feel when you know you're not dreaming? There is nothing above.
How you feel when things come together? How you feel when everything nice? How you feel when you savor the flavor, the feeling you get when you taste every bite?
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
The COVID-19 pandemic is causing untold human suffering and economic devastation around the world. I recently called for an immediate global ceasefire to focus on our shared struggle to overcome the pandemic. I appealed for an end to violence everywhere now. But violence is not confined to the battlefield. For many women and girls, the threat looms largest where they should be safest, in their own homes. And so I make a new appeal today for peace at home and in homes around the world. We know lockdowns and quarantines are essential to suppressing COVID-19, but they can trap women with abusive partners. Over the past weeks, as economic and social pressures and fear have grown, we have seen a horrifying global surge in domestic violence. In some countries, the number of women calling support services has doubled. Meanwhile, healthcare providers and police are overwhelmed and understaffed. Local support groups are paralyzed or short of funds. Some domestic violence shelters are closed, others are full. I urge all governments to make the prevention and redress of violence against women a key part of their national response plans for COVID-19. That means increasing investment in online services and civil society organizations, making sure judicial systems continue to prosecute abusers, setting up emergency warning systems in pharmacies and groceries, declaring shelters as essential services, and creating safe ways for women to seek support without alerting their abusers. Women's rights and freedoms are essential to strong, resilient societies. Together we can and must prevent violence everywhere, from war zones to people's homes, as we work to beat COVID-19.
And that message there from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. All right, you listen to Voices on Win FM 90.9. I'm your host for today's program, Clive Bacchus. We go back to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Call you live and on the air. A very good afternoon to you.
Mr. Bacchus, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I just here enjoying the lockdown so long. But Mr. Bacchus,
I'm glad to hear that.
Some people complain about lockdown. Some people like it, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So 25 minutes I get up to that and just leave everybody one while. And everybody gets sick. Who they gonna blame?
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
You do your damn, you ain't do your damn. I don't know, I mean, come on. St. Kitts is, people don't understand St. Kitts is a small place, you know? We don't have enough bed in the hospital when people start to get sick, when people just dropping down. People, oh my God, Mr. Bacchus, I don't know what to say here. You get up every morning and God give your life and put that, send that into your body. Give God thanks and hold on, man. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dead, you're gone. And now you're alive. Give God thanks and enjoy the little peace and the little lockdown. So long, thank God that the coin rate dropped, because if the coin be mixed with this, I don't know what will happen to some of us.
I hear you.
You understand, Mr. Bacchus?
Yes, I hear what you're saying.
So people need to give God thanks. And if you alone live, you don't have no children, and you got it, and you go shop, you know somebody that phone for children, buy a little extra can of milk or something and just sign it to them.
Yes.
That makes sense. We can't be pitying people and ain't helping. Pity without helping the youth. The government trying the best. I enjoy the lockdown, man. Think it's a small place. I got it too good, you know. They got it too good in St. Kitts. Mr. Bacchus, you have a safe afternoon.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for your contribution. We're going to take one more call for the day, and we're going to wrap things up. And that call is saying, look, you got to bear a little bit. It's going to be a little tough, a little bit of sacrifice, but for the good of everybody. Try and make the most of it. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Final caller for today. All right, well, we seem to have missed that call. I do apologize. We're going to wrap it up now. That's the end of our program for today. Thank you so much for calling. Thanks for participating in the program. Thanks for your conversation, your recommendations, and your analysis as well. And, of course, we wish you well. Do stay safe. And if you can, keep it locked to Win FM 98.9. We say so long for today from Voices.
How does it feel when you got that feeling? You got the flavor you love. How does it feel when you know you're not dreaming? There is nothing above.
How you feel when things come together? How you feel when everything nice? How you feel when you savor the flavor, the feeling you get when you taste every bite?
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas, announces king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts. We have the best service and competitive rates on LCL and FCL cargo, including D&E containers, cars, heavy equipment, buses, boats, and barrels from Miami to St. Kitts. LCL pickup service anywhere in the U.S. Call local agents SL Horseman and Company Limited at 869-465-4086 or 869-662-5008 for further details. King Ocean's king-size savings on shipments from Miami to St. Kitts Nevis. King Ocean, king of the Caribbean seas.